Okay, so today's lecture, we are going to be discussing about just having an overview of Photoshop. And I'm going to be discussing some of the parts or some of the things that you should consider or put into consideration when working with Photoshop. And we might not be doing maybe top level or top tier level Photoshop or effects techniques in Photoshop, but we are going to try as much as possible to understand the basics, understand the essentials, so that when we are working with Photoshop or when we're working with Illustrator, we'll be able to integrate both Photoshop into our work with Illustrator. If you're using Photoshop 2022 to 2024, it will be very seamless for you to import probably your pixels or your assets from Illustrator to Photoshop. When you open Photoshop for the very first time, this is the interface you are going to get. There's nothing that's supposed to be different, especially from the Photoshop that I will give, or the Photoshop that I actually give you to download. So we are going to be working with that. And so this is how the interface looks like. At the top here, we have what we call the menu bar. That's the menu bar for Photoshop. It's also found in Adobe Illustrator. So there's quite similarities between Photoshop and also Illustrator. So here is called the menu bar, while this is just your workspace. But for now, we'll go deep into working on the workspace. So you can either open a new file or you could open a previous file. So I'll be creating a new file for this. So now we have, for default, we have something like a default Photoshop size, which is in cm, but most of our designs will be, or most of our work will be in pixels, because we are working on screen, and most of the pixels we use, or most of what we do are on pixels. If you want to make especially designs for screen, but I will not advise you to do designs for print on Photoshop, except you're doing it for just a poster or something like that that would not be that extremely large. But when you're working on very large prints, I think Illustrator, not I think, Illustrator is the best. It's the best to work for large printing. So things that could go in feet, probably 20, 50 feet, Illustrator can handle it depending on your machine. So here, as we're working on screen, or most of our designs are on screen, we'll be working more on pixels here, but we'll go straight into that. So here we have options that we can select. We have ones that are saved in case probably we work on something and want to just jump on a saved one, or anyone that is being saved, we can jump right here. These are the ones we worked on recently, so we can see most of what we work on recently here. But this is a fresh start, so you don't worry, you do not have anything on this part here. So half of photos, so in case you're trying to edit photos and maybe it's in inches or something like that, you have different sizes that you could work on those. You have for portraits, you have for probably some larger portraits, and most more larger portraits. Also we have landscape, and also so images or photos that you want to edit, this will suit it. And for print, if you can see, most of what is here, the highest print you see here is probably an A3. I think that's an A3. A3 should be here. So A3 is not here to show you Photoshop is not suited for large prints. It's not the best for large printing. So when you're working on anything print, you could see it goes from letters to, I think, the smallest. Okay, I think that's not the smallest. Yeah, I think that's the smallest. So it goes from from letters, which is almost A4, but from letters then goes down to DL. I do not know much about DL, but all those ones are just for print. So as you can see, for art illustration, now this is where we begin to go into pixels when we're working on illustrations and art. Most times people use Photoshop to do art and illustrations because it's more suitable for when it comes to pixel interaction and manipulation. So for the main reason of manipulating assets, that's why most people prefer to use Photoshop over some other softwares. Then we have for web, you could also make designs for web. You have also for mobile, and you also have for video and films. So Photoshop can also do short videos, not long videos. I think a minute video also, but Photoshop basically you can also edit videos in there. And also here you could create thumbnails, so in case you're not sure about the size of a particular video, you could also check from the presets or from the sizes that you have here to get what kind of video you're working on or something like that. So that's all about the some of the presets that we can, or the templates that we can use in Photoshop in creating a new document. Now we come to the right hand side, which is like the presets details. So our presets details, we can either give it a name. So I would prefer to use, let me just go for something like, let me go for mobile, and I will give it a pixel. So I'll just edit everything I want here. So we're going to give it a name, and let's call it practice 3. I think, did I spell that practice well? Yes, I think so. Then we will be using the default size or default square size for most of the social media handles or most of the social media platforms out there, for Instagram, Photoshop, Instagram, Binance, and different platforms that we have there, which is 1080 by, that's width, and also have 1080 on the height. So width and height 1080. Ensure it's on pixels. You could see for inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, and Pascal here, but ensure you keep it here. Now resolution depends on you. I prefer to use most times 300 as my resolution anytime I'm working on screen, but it depends on what kind of size you're working on. So we're using pixel to inches in this case. Now, because of it's for display, I have already selected a preset on mobile here. It's going to give me only an option, the RGB option. But if probably I'm working on print, you will see an option of CMYK. So let's go to print, and we can choose. You could see option for CMYK, RGB, grayscale, bitmap, and the rest. So for mobile, because it's on mobile, it gives you only the RGB option. So let's go to 1080 by 1080. I will be choosing 300 as our resolution, and we have a white background here. If you want to check advanced profile there, yeah, you don't need to touch anything there, just leave it like that, except when you're working on advanced editing in Photoshop. So that's it. So we'll be working on square pixels. Most of our pixels should be in squares, and that's all. And what we'll do, click create. And now we have our artboard, because we choose the presets, so we have an artboard that is being created. Most times you don't have the options to have multiple artboards, but you can work with multiple artboards. So in this case, this is how it looks for the first time. This is how your Photoshop is going to look for the very first time. Opening it, that's from 2020 above to 2024. Then now at the top bar here, I said it's the menu bar. We have at the top here, it's called the menu bar. Now under of the top bar and the menu bar, we have something called the option bar. Now the option bar acts as an option for tools that are found on the left hand side. Now for the left hand side, this is called toolbar. You could make it to be more broader, or you could just narrow it down and just have it. So if you have a large screen, mine is not a large screen, it's a 14-inch laptop, so that's why we're having things chunked here. And maybe you're trying to access the colors here, and you can't do that, then you could pop it up so you have options to select those ones here. So we have this here, and then it's called the menu bar, as I said. Now on the right hand side, we have what called the panels. There are different panels that are here. We have the color panel, swatch panel, gradient panel, and the pattern panel. So if you want to edit on any of them, you go to swatch, it gives you the swatch options, gradient option, pattern, and the pattern option. So this is for colors. But you can rearrange all this if you want to. Now, for you to be able to rearrange them, you just come to where like they are divided. You could come to this part, and you could click and drag, and that part will be cut off, like will be totally removed from it. If you want to take it back, in case probably you drag it, you could drag, and when you bring it close to the wall, you see a blue line there, and you leave it, and it snaps back to its position. So what I most times like to do is I pick each of them, and I drag them, and I position them where I want them to be. But before that, let me just show you the rest of the panels that we have here. So we have the properties panel, the adjustment panel, we have the libraries, where if you have a subscribed or you are paid Creative Cloud account, then you could use that also. Now we have the layers here, the layer panel, we have the channel panel, and we have the part panels. These three panels most times are together. I would not advise you to actually take them or tear them apart. Ensure that the just three of them are right, like are staying side by side. You understand? So what I mean by tearing them apart is probably maybe like in a case where I want to pick all these ones because I don't want them here. I just want my layers, or I just want to leave my layers and my channels. Most times what I do is I pick my properties, I place my properties at this panel here. There's an additional panel for you in case you want to place more panels. You want to add more panels to this section. So I could pick my library and put it there, and pick and put it there. So what I just have is my color and my layers. I could also adjust them to probably different sizes. So I have this for this size, and then I just have my layer here. So it's more easier for me to access most of my layers. Now, what do I mean by layers? Now, the way Photoshop works is that each asset is being placed on another asset. So probably, and the asset that is on top of the other asset will be more visible, or will be visible compared to the one that is under of it. Now, in cases where you have multiple layers, each layer or any layer that stands on top of the other layer can either have a blend or can be smaller in order to make the layer under it visible. So that's different techniques that you can put into place when you're considering the different layers that you do have. So let me explain let me show you what I actually mean. So in this case, maybe I select from my tool, the ellipse tool. I could come here and draw a circle, and in this circle I want to have another circle on it, but I do not want it to cover the circle. So what do? Is that I could duplicate this, or I could draw another circle on it. And for this case, because they do not have contrast, as Ellie spoke in previous video, there's fundamentals of design, that contrast is needed for you to differentiate two objects or two assets. So in this case, you could click on them, click on the one on top of it. If you see, it's the one highlighted here, and it's also the one that is being selected here. You could click on that, and you could choose any color from recently used color, but I just click on this kind of this color here, and if you click, it gives you options. So you could choose any color there, and that will be the color that is on top. So you could also position this at the center by aligning it, by the center, align and align. So this also could be at the center, align and align. So now this one is on top of the layer. If you take it behind of this, like you could see layer here is on top here. If I take it behind of it, it will disappear because this layer is bigger than the other. So it's just very easy to understand and to explain. So let me just run through the menu bar for you so you could see some of the things that are found in the menu. And anytime you're working on, probably you're trying to make an edit or something like that, you're looking for a particular thing there, you could also know where it is. Now for the file basically deals with what you are working on. So the file as an entirety. So if maybe you want to export the file, or maybe you want to create a new file, or maybe you want to open a new file, or anything that concerns file, you find it under the menu, the file menu. So here you could see new, open, browse, and bridge. So you have different. This is a segment, like this gives you a section of that menu. You understand? A section of that particular menu, that's the file menu. Now we have for close. So all this is about whether the file is to be opened or the file is to be closed. So in this case, so if you're creating a new one, it will not affect your own file. So this section doesn't really affect the current file you're working on. It just creates an alternative for it, or a different one is being opened. While this totally affects the file. So it affects whether the file is going to be saved or the file is going to be closed. So without saving. Then we have export and generate. This is just the end result or the byproduct of what you get when working on that file. Then the next section, this one is just when you're working with the Creative Cloud and you want to jump into the Creative Cloud, that's for this section. Then these ones are for auto bits. Probably you want to create a droplet, or you want to create something that could be automatic. And so maybe in future tutorials, we're going to work on creating automatic edits. We just have automatic edit. Once you just drag it into the file, automatically begins to edit batch in multiple ones. So we have scripts. If you have scripts that are already written for automation too, that one also works. Also, you can import also either the droplets or you can import a script too. That one also works. Then we have file information if you want to know what the file. Probably there is a ISO or some, probably you're working on a photo, an image, and you want to find out probably what's in a file. Then you could also check out here. They'll have a print and print one copy, and you can also exit Photoshop. Now, coming into edits basically affects the whole process on your Canva. Like if you have a particular asset and it's been selected or it's been highlighted, then you can copy it, you can cut it, you can clear it, you can paste it or something like that. So those are what you can do. So in this case, nothing is selected here. So when you go to edit, you see most of things here are grayed out. On all these things here are also grayed out. But when I select something, let me bring this to the top. I select this. I can make edits by copying, because nothing is being copied and nothing is being copied for me to paste. That's why they're still grayed out. So if I copy and I come back to edit, I could see paste and paste special. So paste in a particular place or different stuffs like that. So most of the things are being highlighted now in this case. Then we also have other contents here which you could also go through. We have transform, in case you want to flip it, want to warp it, want to distort it. So all those ones also you could do using the transform under the edit menu. We have purge. Then also down in the last section we have where we have preference. So in case you want to set particular preference for your Photoshop on how the Photoshop behaves, we have general settings. We have the interface, how you want the interface to look like. It should be white. There are people who work on white interfaces. Then we have workspace, how you want your workspace to look like. We have tools, we have history, and there are a lot more. You could go through those ones and you could understand how they work. So in case you have issues or maybe your Photoshop is misbehaving, you could get the solution from these preferences right here. You could also change the units. You could see how your 3D. We also have for disks and scratch disks where most of your caches or your cache will be stored and different stuff like that. So that's for edits there. Yeah, we have for images. If you're working with images and you want to increase the size of the images or the canvas size or stuff like that, you could see that in the images or in the images menu or the menu image or something like that. So we have modes for RGB. You want to change it from RGB to CMYK or to bitmap or something like that. So down also, it could also be in bits, in 1632 bits. All those ones depends on the intensity or the depth of the color. So all those ones too, you could work on those ones too. So for layers is when you want to edit the layer specifically. You want to create a particular layer. Now, when you come to the adjustments here, you could see a lot of options here. Now, these options the edits on these options are actually made on probably you're working on a photo, it's actually made on that particular photo. But when you come to layers and you go to what's it called, new layer adjustments. So these adjustments that you see in images here, all of them or most of them are being listed in this new adjustment layer here. So what this will do is that it will create a new layer on top of probably the image you want to edit or anything that you're editing under of it. So when you are editing, it will be editing on that layer, but will not affect the original layer you're trying to implement or effect that effect on it, or probably have that effect on it. So it's not affect the original image, just have it on a layer on top of it. So that's what the layer menu could also do for you. So a lot of things you could do with the layer. You could have a new fill as a layer there instead of having a fill on it, or probably something like that. So that was there. They'll have for typography. It's not much. You might not do much on typography when it comes to Photoshop. It's not a typeface platform where you want to create new typography or new fonts or something like that. The best place to do it is in Illustrator. So for that one too also here, because this is a vector or this is a pixel based software. For Illustrator is a vector based software, and texts or types are vector based. They do not lose quality when they are being zoomed in or they are being stretched or maximized, so they still preserve their integrity. Now have for select for the things that have been selected. If you want to select things based on the coloring, if you want to select things based on the focal area or something like that. So selection. So most times when I use selection menu, I make use of this section here. I do not touch the rest because probably maybe I've not known much about it. Then also for the modify in that aspect. So we have also for filters, in case you want to apply a particular filter. There are a lot of filters. There are 3D filters, the blur filters, the Gaussian blur, the motion blur, radial blur, and a lot of blurs there. We have also for the distort, noise. We have renders. We have also for creating light. That is also under render. I think, yes, that's for lights. Yeah, lens flare and also something like that. They'll have for 3Ds. If you're working on 3Ds on Photoshop, Photoshop is also a good platform to work on 3Ds too. Then we have views. This is mostly about what you can see and how you interact with your interface. So the interacting with the interface and how you see them is under the view option. So if you want the assets to snap on grids, you probably want them to have guides. You could also include guides and also lock the guides where guides could come in. So you have to bring out the ruler. So that's Control R. If you hold on Control and click on R, you have ruler. So you can draw, you can introduce guides, and you can turn off the snap. So anytime you're trying to drag something and you don't want it to snap, like the way it's snapping like this, you don't want it to snap, because like if you drag, see, it snaps for you there. So if you don't want that, you can also deactivate it and you have it snap here. So there are also a lot of things. You could zoom in here and you could also zoom out. You can zoom in precisely, I think that's 100%. And view, you could zoom into 200%. So that one also works there. That's view. You can zoom out and then zoom out again. So good. So we have plugins. Plugins, in case you have plugins and you want to add it there, that one works too. We have for Windows. Now Windows basically works with your panels and things that you want to add in here. So in case probably like let's say you lost colors and probably maybe you closed it. In this case, maybe you closed your colors and you can't find it here. You could come here to Windows and you could scroll down to color and click on color, and it will come back and you can place it back where it is. So you could drag also like that to have Windows. So all you need here, all you need on Photoshop is inside your Windows. For timelines, we have gradients, so we can also the gradients there. We have a lot of things for paragraphs. So in case you are typing and you want them to be adjusted, we have adjustments, we have actions. So the actions will come in handy when you are automating a particular effect. So I think this is an automation I have created before. That is also there. So I think that's everything you need to know about Photoshop. Now under here gives you details. This is like the information pan or the information parts section of Photoshop. So this is like the information section, while this is still under your layout panel. Drag them out like that, so you could also leave them back there. Pick the layer here. So yeah, it's already there. Good. So that's all about Photoshop. Everything that you need to know, everything that you need to know about Photoshop that will get you started in your graphic design journey. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.